I was an Apple reseller, service provider, consultant, ne'er-do-weller, all of those things, but more importantly is I make sourdough bread, and it's not getting made this week because I'm here. It's sadness. So this was the workshop. We're going to do all of these things. You're not going to do all these things now. But we are going to kind of look at Fleet and kind of show off what you can do with it and OS Query. Who's familiar with OS Query? Uses OS Query. Uses Fleet. Doesn't care about any of this and wonders why they're in this room. Oh, perfect. So for those who are interested, there's a great OS Query Slack, and I think there's a MacAdmin Slack too, maybe, possibly. So we do have some channels in there for Fleet, and also OS Query channel in that for both of those. Invite you to join the conversation there for sure. So for those who aren't familiar with OS Query, it's an open source project started about a decade ago. One of the co-founders of the project, Zach, is hiding in the back there. So any technical questions, don't ask him because he's got other stuff to do. With Fleet, we've pulled in a bunch of community tables as well. So there's over 300. I think we're up to 330, I think is the current count of tables of data that's basically pre-fetched. So think of this as, with OS Query, instead of you having to write a script to go find a detail about a machine, OS Query has already scooped all of that up, and it's now a giant database that you can just run a query against and answer those questions. So you can do things like what files are present on the system, what user accounts are on the system, are there ask technical questions about like security things, like do I have an unencrypted SSH key sitting out there? Are my hard drives unencrypted? What things are running on the system currently? You can do file integrity monitoring, file access monitoring. So what sort of things might be accessing this file? Has this file, like the sudoers file on a Linux server or even your Mac, changed? Let's do something about that. So what Fleet does is basically create a wrapper around this to centralize the management of OS Query on all of the endpoints, collect all of that data, allow you to take all of that data and push it into a SIM or a data lake like Snowflake or Splunk or Elastic. And then we've also added a bunch of REST APIs and webhooks, and then because everybody's doing MDM, we are too. So everybody's an MDM. You're an MDM? You're an MDM? No, I'm kidding. But we do also do MDM as well because some of as Apple has locked more stuff down into the MDM protocol to get things and to take action on a device, MDM is kind of important for that. So if you wanted to do this, and I don't advise doing this because if you don't have Docker, it's a 450 meg download on this network is a no-go. And then you can grab fleetctl off of our repo. It's github.com/fleetdm/fleet in the latest releases. And you can, built into that fleet control command is a preview instance. And this will spin up a little Docker compose file that will spin up a temporary Docker instance with Fleet server, enroll your local device, and a couple of sample Linux devices as well. That doesn't work, so we're not going to do that. And I'm not going to have you test it either because it's not working. But let's talk about SQL. So a good half of you have used OS Query, or at least know of OS Query. Who's actually using it on the regular? Who lives and breathes SQL? You guys in the back with your Fleet shirts don't count. I'm kidding. So SQL is essentially a table. You're querying a table. So you're asking what columns, star gives you all of them, from what table, and then you can add conditions on top of that. So you can say where something matches on something, you can join other tables. So combining tables together will give you more data. If you want to see like particular processes associated with a user, you would join to the users table on that user ID identifier to see what processes are related to them and what they're doing. Very simple here example is select username from the users table and order by username. So that'll just give you an ordered list of the users on your device. For most people, it's going to be root and whatever your local username is, unless you're doing a good thing and not running as admin. And then you have a second account that's a normal user, right? We all do that in this room, right? So for tables, we're going to go through every single one of these. No, we're not. But I never shortened this build, so this takes a minute. And I forgot to advance this while I was talking about tables. So please hold. We're almost not done. Nope, still going. Wait for it. Oh, wait, one last. All right, there we go. Moving on. So this is an example of like running apps, very simple. So there's two columns. There's a PID, process ID, and the bundle identifier for a running app. These are the table schemas. They're available at fleetdm.com/tables. And we also include these in the UI, and I'll show you that here in a minute. And then a lot of times we'll give you an example of how to use this table. So this is a nice jumping off point to get you started on that. So if I jump out here, maybe, don't want to work. All right, we'll do it this way. All right, so this is the Fleet UI here. Let me find my cursor, it just disappeared on me. There we go. If we go into queries here, we can actually add a query, and we give you a default one that's just the OS query, and I can say I want to do a live query. So one of the cool things is I can actually target devices and do that live. So my machine is called Marguerite because it rhymes with fleet, and we can run that. And it's actually running to this device, so it's going across international borders right now and returning this information. So it's like a spy. So it's pretty slick for being able to do live querying and asking those questions immediately. Otherwise you would have to write a script, deploy that script, have that script log it somewhere, collect those logs, do something. You can get these answers pretty quickly. And we can get a lot more complex than just asking about the OS query details for that. So for example here, we can get fancy and select specific columns. The example I gave you there was just a star, which brings back all the columns. So the idea here is that you can actually build your final pretty report as you build your query instead of having to grab all of the data, push that into some other tool, Numbers, Excel, what have you, and reform that however you want. You can actually kind of design and decorate the data the way you want. We can add where strings, so you can define what type of data you want back, and you can also do wildcards. So wildcards are helpful if you know that you want all of the log files. So you might specify var log / maybe a preface %sign .log, and that'll bring back all the logs that pattern match that for you. So a couple of examples here is the processes table. This will give you a snapshot of what's happening on a particular device. We have the users table. Again, you can see who the user is if you specify UID 501. Anybody? 501? No? Yeah. It's the default.
It's not hidden.
Huh?
It's not hidden.
And it's not hidden. No. Let's see. Another cool thing is pulling in Chrome extensions. We can also, there's also a Safari table, which we had an interesting conversation on the OS Query Office Hours yesterday about how this is changing, because with Sequoia, who can spell Sequoia? No. You know, these are basically apps that are running on next to Safari. No, it's interesting. We have the events table. There's actually a couple of these. There's file events for macOS and Linux, NTFS journal events on the Windows side. Did I mention that we support Windows and Linux as well? We do. PowerShell events for Windows, process events for macOS and Linux, socket events for macOS and Linux. So these are helpful for detection and investigation of processes, file integrity monitoring, and tracking things like USB storage drives if you want to know if somebody's plugged something in, what they've plugged in, maybe what they did, if you're not completely blocking that with MDM. And then all of that data can be ingested into a log aggregator or data lake for that. So the idea here is if you wanted to track like things that are plugged in, you can run a scheduled query. That query runs periodically, scans the USB drives, and then you pump that into a data lake, and you can look at over time what a user might have done. So let's see. We're not going to add hosts because we're not actually doing this demo. But that's how you would do it. I'm not going to have you log into the server because I can't give you all access. There's 2 people in this room that do have access to the server. I'll huddle around them. No, kidding. Don't do that. Let's see. Let's skip through this because we're not doing a lot of these. But let's look at policies. So policies is an interesting concept in that you're creating a query that results in a true-false, essentially. So is file vault enabled? Yes or no? If it's not, that's going to return a false, and that's going to basically send up a flag to say, I want to do something with that. So if we hop back into here, I find my cursor. Ah, there, hi cursor. So if we look at policies, and we don't have any policies here, by default we give you a lot for the different platforms. So let's look at full disk encryption, also known as file vault. So if we look at this query, we'll see that we're looking at the disk encryption table where the user ID is not empty and the file vault status is on. We're limited that to 1 result, and basically if it returns a 1, so this is kind of an SQL trick, then we're passing this, and if it returns not a 1, we're not passing this. So what's cool about this is we can actually build policy around that. So let me jump into a different team here where we have some policies around that. So what I can do is I can create an automation around this. So I can say I want file vault enabled here, and I can call a webhook. And then in that webhook, the world's my oyster at this point. I can do whatever I want with that. When this webhook gets called and I see that this policy is failing, I can reach out with an MDM command and say enable file vault and escrow the key. Or I can pop up a Swift dialog and harass the user with you've not done your job. Whatever I want to do. So there's a lot of options that way. So that's policies. We can do the same thing for firewall. This is how you might do that on macOS, looking at ALF table. For Windows, there's the Windows Security Center, and the firewall is good. That's probably one of my favorites. I don't understand where their engineers come up with this stuff, but it's spectacular. Wes?
Are you guys going to fix the firewall table in Sequoia? I'd ask you to repeat the question, but I'm not sure we should.
You're asking for IPFW to be fixed in Sequoia?
Yeah,
Or-
no, it reads the table reads the P list, which isn't there anymore.
Does Wes want a microphone? Does,
So to repeat the question is, if we're going to fix the OS query table that's looking at the firewall, to stop looking for a plist that no longer exists and actually read the right thing. And Charvel answered, there's a PR for it. Right? That good summary?
pull request incoming.
Right.
Back to you, JD.
Thank you. All right. Let's say you have unwanted software like Discord. I mean, granted, I might be running half this conference off the Discord, but maybe you don't want that on your user devices. You could build a policy around looking at the apps table and seeing if something like Discord exists. And the reason why I actually have this surrounded with percent signs on either side is because there's Canary Discord, because there's a Canary version of Discord, and people could get around it. So we have to be smarter than our users most days. If not, they'll outsmart us. So I briefly touched on automations. We've added calendar events to this, so this will actually reach into your user's calendar, find a free time, and basically book a half an hour with them. When that time period comes up, it'll trigger the webhook. So this is handy for running OS updates, or maybe asking them to nicely close all of their apps so you can update that, or you can just brute force, kill everything and update it. Whatever your Mac management style might be, you can do that. But any of these webhooks anything that can create a webhook, you can design your own artisanal webhook with ChatGPT, or your own knowledge if you want. Or you can use something like Tines, Okta Workflows, Make.com. I use an open source product called N8N. It runs on a $6 DigitalOcean droplet. Spectacular. Cost me $6. So that's an example of what the calendar event might look like for you. For that, I'm not going to dig too deep into it, but if you're interested in that, come find me or Zach or Dave in the back, and we'd be happy to show you around this. Tines workflows are pretty easy. You drag a webhook on there, it gives you the webhook URL that you copy, and then just paste that into the Fleet UI. So this is all the details on how you would do that, and this is how you might do it in Make. Who uses low-code, no-code automation tools? Who loves their low-code, no-code automation tool? 2, 3 hands, 3 hands, stay up. Who's just cranking out scripts left and right? Yeah. Z shell, Z shell if you're in Canada. All right. So yes, this is very exciting. I'm going to move on. So let's see. What do I want to talk about here? So here's another example of looking for an unencrypted SSH key. If we were actually doing the live demo, I would have you do this, but it tells you don't do this. So this is creating an unencrypted SSH key. There's no password protection on that. It's not a wise idea, but great for a good demo. Anybody know why they should put passwords on their keys? Yeah, good. You should. Just do it. I know it's a pain. You have to remember another password. We also have a full REST API out there. That's up on Postman for that. And in Tines, we've got a full set of Fleet templates for that. I'm working on one of these moons. I'll get my N8N templates finished, and those will be out there as well. So spelunking for threats here. So one of the things I'll rehash again is that Fleet is just a snapshot in time. It's whatever that we saw the last time that host checked in with the fleet server. If you want data over time, you have to push that out to a SIM or a data lake for that, so that you have data now over time for that. So that can be helpful for if you have an intrusion, you can go back and look at, see what happened, what policies didn't we create, should we create from that. Or you can just berate users for doing stupid things with their devices, whatever you want to do for that. So, you can build also policies around, things that shouldn't change, like the sudoers file. This is basically file integrity monitoring. We've got a couple of examples of that, like with the MITRE ATT&CK framework and discovering Geekon with Fleet. We just put out another blog post about discovering XZ with Fleet and actually how to remediate that. So with that, I'm going to go back. Culpa. Yes, there's Pong running back here. That's the Fleet server that's not working. You're welcome.
Now I know why.
Now you know why. It's Pong. It's a giant rootkit. So let's kind of poke through here a little bit just to show you more of the UI here. So at the core of this, we show you the hosts that are installed. This is actually our Fleet instance. This is Fleet employees. We can mess with them if you want, but it'll cost you beers to do that. And I'm kidding. We're not going to do that. Maybe. So you get a listing of who's on here. You can see recent activity. There's much greater logs than what's just in the UI here for that. In a particular host, again, if we'll go down to my host here. So this is my device. Ooh, I have a failed setting. Bad JD. You can see basic details about the host, what the serial number is, IP address, public IP address, for that, any activity that's happened on this device. You can see a full software inventory. We'll pull a full software inventory on all of the devices, and we actually match that up against the National Vulnerability Database. And we just brought in vuln checks, NVD++, and also verify against that as well. So if you have security needs, this can help you in those regards. You can see queries that are running routinely on here, and that data can be, again, pumped out to a data lake or a SIM or a data aggregator, and then policies that apply to this. The OS settings, this is MDM and OS updates, not happy with me. But you can see all the MDM policies as well and whether they've been applied. One of the cool things with Fleet is we're using OS Query to verify that policy has made it actually down to the device. As Apple builds out declarative device management, you have pseudo declarative device management by being able to actually verify with OS Query that the settings changed, that policy's actually been pushed down to the device for that. Controls, this is where you might set up things like MDM and the like for that. So you can also, we have OS updates that'll use the DDM update enforcement, and you can set a date for enforcement on that. And let's see. Disk encryption, basics of firewall key, escrow, and then any policies. And we have a nice web UI around all of this, but really what we encourage is a GitOps configuration for this. So you actually would want to maintain all of this in a Git repo. We have an example Git repo out there, and actually our entire Git repo is, if you go out to the Fleet GitHub, we have all of our settings and everything out there in the wild for you to see how we're managing it, and these configuration profiles and any policies that we're running. So the fun of being an open source company is we do everything out in the open. It's like having windows with no blinds. So same thing with scripts. You can do remote script execution on this. You don't have to have MDM enabled to be able to push scripts down to an endpoint as well as part of that. So software tabs or tables or page rather is going to give you full inventory of that. We also show you like OS vulnerabilities out there, any CVEs that might exist for the various operating systems that you have out there, and then even more fun with the vulnerabilities. You can step into each one of these and get a link to the NVD page, see folks that are affected, and what software is affected by that particular CVE. So with that, I have a hand raise.
With the vulnerability stuff, you're just tracking the CVE scores or any like future plans to use like EPSS or something like that that gives a velocity on the urgency?
So the question was, is there any plans to use EPSS or other tooling to basically gauge the level of threat on there? And we do actually. Let me go back to this. So when you're on a vulnerability, we do give a severity, and this severity is a CVSS score for that, but bringing in other resources is definitely on the radar. If you're not seeing something that you do want, put in a feature request as an issue, and we'll look into it for sure. Does that answer what you were looking for? Other questions? Concerns? Desires for me to get off this stage? Desires for Matt to come up here and entertain you with song and dance?
Quick talks always accepted.
Quick talks always accepted.
Question from earlier, the low-code solution that you were mentioning that you're running at home on a Raspberry Pi?
The low-code solution that I'm not running on a Raspberry Pi, but on a $6 DigitalOcean droplet, and that's US dollars, not those Kazakhstan dollars, Kopecks, or whatever they're called, is N, the letter N, the number 8, the letter N, N8N. It's an open source project as well. And they've got a nice little Docker compose that just spins up, and I didn't have to work hard at it, which made me even fall more in love with it. So the less I have to work at things, I'm a lazy admin. I think, well, I'm not going to comment on the rest of y'all. Other questions? Yes?
You talked about using GitOps. Is there a Terraform provider for this?
Yes, we have AWS Terraform out there, ready to go, and I think there's a few others for if you're in GCP, but it's a good example workflow that you can absolutely modify to non-AWS database tools and things like that. And there's Docker Compose files out there, and if you want to artisanally handcraft it, you can set up MySQL on your own and Redis and do that yourself as well. Matt, are you ready to kick me off the stage yet?
JD.
I'm not begging you to. I'm just asking you to please kick me off the stage.
No, does anybody else want to join in on the fun? Questions? Questions? Anybody else want to share some Fleet experience?
Wes would like to heckle me.
I think it would be cool if you actually. Oh, yeah. Do you have any live, or I'm not gonna ask you to do it live, but do you have any like videos to show folks how like the GitOps, like MDM stuff like actually works? I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, GitOps is dry and boring because it's like, here's a commit, and now merge the PR, and it just does its thing. So yes,
It's magic.
It's magic. Yeah, no, I don't have a video on that. I think we are working on
I
something.
think JD just said GitOps is boring. What? I was gonna call it MacGit. Oh. Shit. Did someone say shit?
I mean, some people like to watch paint dry. I don't know. I mean, you want a lint YAML, it's the hot new thing, right?
Anything else to show us, JD?
Later. Wait, what? Brad?
Can Fleet work with an existing MDM like Jamf Pro?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have an MDM, but there's no need to run our MDM. It'll run alongside Jamf or Mosel or Simple MDM or any other MDM that you want to run. Yeah.
Can I run this at home?
You, maybe. Others, absolutely. So it is free and open source. You're more than welcome to spin this up. The premium version turns on some more additional features like segmentation, the ability to apply policies basically to different groups of computers, and some more in-depth like NVD connections and things like that. But the open source version is very capable, has remote script capabilities if you want to turn that on. Enabled, has the ability to do call a webhook and some of the automations in there. So it's pretty capable for a free open source product.
What do y'all do for testing at scale?
I don't work at scale, so sorry, it's bad. It's bad joke Wednesday.
Okay, JD. Thanks, JD.
We do run large scale tests on it. We have deployments with thousands of endpoints for this. I don't know the exact. I know it's at least tens of thousands. It might be hundreds of thousands. I'm not in sales, so I don't know. I live in my own little tiny safe bubble, but I don't know if Dave or Zach can speak to either of those. You have to turn it on first.
Hello. Yes, there are production deployments up well over 100,000 hosts, and we have some internal tooling that we've built that simulates hosts. In practical, to typically actually spin up hundreds of thousands of hosts for testing, but we do simulated hosts up to like pretty massive, multiple 100,000s.
Because we all like paying AWS bills. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody else want to share some beautiful experiences that have recently affected their lives? No? Eric? Okay. Thank you, JD. Woo!
Hey, thank you. So I'll take off my Fleet hat for a half minute and put on my MacDevOps Discord hat. If you're not seeing the 2024 conference channels or rooms or whatever you want to call them, I can't ever remember what they're called. There is a help yourself option to assign yourself. If you're if you're lost, can't figure it out, come see me. We'll get you squared away to get in there. And yeah, thanks everybody.